On to the big story we're tracking today. India's High Court in Allahabad is expected to deliver its verdict in one of the country's biggest murder mysteries, the Aarushi Talwar murder case. Aarushi's parents are the accused in the case. The Allahabad High Court had earlier reserved its verdict in the appeal filed by her parents, Rajesh and Nupur Talwar, who were sentenced to life by a CBI court in Ghaziabad. 14-year-old Aarushi was found murdered on the night of May 15th and 16th, 2008, that's 9 years ago, at the Talwar's residence, along with the Talwar's house help, Hemraj, who was discovered on the terrace of the home 2 days later. The police then considered Aarushi's parents, Rajesh and Nupur Talwar, as the prime suspects and said that the father had murdered both his daughter and the domestic help after finding them in an quote-unquote objectionable circumstances. The accusations enraged relatives and close friends of the Talwars. The case was then transferred to the CBI, which exonerated the parents and suspected the Talwar's assistant, Krishna, along with 2 other domestic helps. In 2009, the CBI handed over the investigation to a new team, which recommended closing the case, but named Rajesh Talwar as the sole suspect. Now, in November 2013, the Talwars were convicted by a special CBI court. The Talwars then challenged the decision in the Allahabad High Court, arguing that the CBI court's verdict was based on weak evidence. My colleague Jessica Taneja joins us live from the newsroom for more on that story. Jessica, this is a case that captured India's attention. Is this today's verdict going to be in some ways some sort of closure, or what are we really expecting from the outcome of the Allahabad High Court's judgment in terms of the intense media scrutiny that has gone into the case from the first day itself?
Absolutely, Aisha. Intense media scrutiny from day one in this case. One of the most contentious cases, in fact, in the history of this country, where a double murder case couldn't be solved initially by the police because of the botched up investigation, allowing passers-by to come in fact, disrupting the whole process of investigation, or not having adequate facilities to, in fact, ensure how in fact, an investigation should be carried on. Remember, Aisha, today they're not, the couple, the father and the mother are not seeking for a retrial. They're simply contesting their conviction by the Ghaziabad, the special CBI court that had in fact given them a life imprisonment term. And given that fact, now the Allahabad High Court, in fact, around 1 hour or more from now, will be able to give out its verdict on whether the conviction stands or not. This is not a retrial, because a retrial would invite reinvestigation of the entire case, which is not what the Allahabad court is strictly looking into. They're only going to examine, in fact, the verdict of the special CBI court in Ghaziabad that had given the life imprisonment to Aarushi's parents.
Jessica, what have been the main bones of contention in the investigation? I mean, it's been transferred from one body to another numerous times, and in fact, the CBI once even said that the Talwars are not to be blamed and passed the buck on to another domestic help, that's Krishna. But then again, the case was transferred to a new team. Does this indicate also in many ways the lack of proper investigation systems in India?
Absolutely, Aisha. This does indicate there is a proper lack of investigative systems in India when you talk about it. For example, let's understand this, in fact, case happened in Noida, Jalwayu Vihar, which is sector 25 here. And there are about 200 million people living in this city, and it's impossible to not have a proper mechanism for investigating, or special bodies to investigate what exactly can happen. As something as simple as fingerprint scan or other, in fact, crucial evidences that were supposed to be extracted back in the day were not really done in the manner they should have, even when there were talks about investigation moving abroad, because India did not have the sufficient and efficient, so to say, investigation, efficiencies and efficient establishments to do so. The case was supposed to, or the evidences were supposed to go for re-examining in overseas, but that in fact couldn't take place. But what would the overseas agencies, investigate if there is nothing substantially left for them to investigate? Because remember, it was a botched up investigation. The UP police was absolutely at fault, initially leaking documents, leaking details, compromising the girls, character XYZ. There were a lot of sort of happenings that were on the part of, in fact, the UP police. And then the first CBI team that had investigated came out with their report saying that it is the servants and not the parents. But then again, the closure report couldn't be filed. The special CBI court in Ghaziabad had said that the closure report cannot sustain. The trial should be started with Aarushi's parents being the main convicts in this particular murder. And looking at the series of investigations that have done, it makes it even more complex, yet gives out a clear picture on how the investigation and the police authorities have failed badly when it comes to this case.
Absolutely. One last question, Jessica. The other phrase that has come up numerous times during the last 9 years over this case has been honor killing. Do you feel that this aspect adds an additional amount of pressure on the outcome of the case?
Well, Aisha, if you look at the chronological events and the investigations that have moved forward, one can only understand from that picture that honor killing, of course, played an initial role, when the police had come out with details. And remember that press conference where, one of the police authorities had in fact come out and say that this in fact was a case of honor killing because the father was doing something against the daughter's wish, the daughter was doing something against the father's wish, and in fact, the father found the daughter in a compromising position. Hence, he was provoked to commit such an act. And all these have been fabricated theories or in fact established theories, one cannot say, because that investigation has never been proven. But what one does understand from this is it's very easy to blame everything on honor killings when there is no substantial evidence. Right. One has to have an established substantial evidence and not just merely go by psychological facts or created physiological facts which do not really play into the legal system or the legal framework of the country.